Hello, my name is Marcus Chavez and I'm with IFARA TV. Today we will be cablecasting segments of the press conferences that were held during the 22nd CROI, which is the annual conference on retroviruses and opportunistic infections, which took place in Seattle, Washington this year. This segment will be presented by Sheena McCormack, who is with the MRC Clinical Trials Unit at University College London in the UK. Sheena talks about the PROUD study. The PROUD study compares the effectiveness of PrEP versus no PrEP in a randomized parallel time over 2 years and the rate of HIV infection of the participants.
So on to Sheena. You want to tell us a little, very quick synopsis of the PROUD study?
Okay, lovely, thanks. Sorry to come late, I was waiting outside. When IPREX reported 44% reduction in HIV in gay men and transgender women, we wanted to set out and see if it would work that well in the real world of our sexual health clinic service in England. So there are over 200 clinics in the UK. They're accessed by 100,000 negative gay men each year. And based on that, we estimated that the rate of HIV infection would be about 3 per 100 gay men followed for a year. So we thought we needed to do a study of 5,000. We set out to do a pilot to see if a design that we had created where you could compare PrEP to no PrEP in a randomized parallel time was actually possible. Now, we created that situation by randomizing men to get PrEP straight away for 2 years or to get it after the first year, only for the second year. So in year one, you could compare PrEP to no PrEP. And the first thing we found was that the rate of HIV infection in the men who had no PrEP in that first year was higher than that 3 per 100 person years we expected. In fact, it was nearly 3 times as high. It was 8.9 per 100 person years. And the second thing we found was that PrEP worked extremely well in that setting. The reduction in HIV was 86%. There were only 3 HIV infections in the men and PrEP in the immediate arm. There were 19 in the deferred group. And the 3 infections that we saw in the immediate arm, one was someone diagnosed very early on, just 4 weeks after he had enrolled, and he had had a very significant risk a week before he enrolled. It's very likely he was actually seroconverting for HIV at the time he enrolled. The other 2 were long-term defaulters. One we have very little information about, but the only PrEP we ever received was the enrollment, and then he came at 14 months with a positive test in another clinic. And the third individual had a couple of prescriptions in the study, a negative test, and then turned up 12 months later with a seroconversion illness. So we've reason to believe that none of them were probably taking PrEP at the time they actually caught HIV. So 86% reduction in the intention to treat analysis. We were concerned that men on Truvada may actually increase their risk of HIV by throwing the condoms away altogether. But based on the reported condom use, there was still a lot of condom use going on at month 12 in both groups, as we saw indeed at baseline. And people always say, well, the condom use is self-reported, maybe you can't rely on that, but you can rely on the STIs. And when we looked at the rectal infections for gonorrhea and chlamydia, we saw no significant difference between these 2 groups. They were common in both groups. Over 30% had rectal gonorrhea or chlamydia, but there was no difference. So really, really effective reduction in HIV without any apparent change in the STIs between the groups. And the clinics were able to do this fairly easily. They saw men every 3 months. It wasn't that difficult to add into routine practice. On the whole, almost all of these men were due a routine screen at 3 months, every 3 months anyway, if not more frequently. So we're very proud to share that result with you.